I often think of disjointed parts of myself, that there's an artist self, there's an intellectual self, there's a mother self, there's the daughter helping everyone, taking care of everyone's self. It's all these different things. And I feel like my artist soul has often been starved and has been suppressed.
Welcome to Back to the Future podcast. My name is Victor Sadia, and I talk with brilliant minds and hearts of people who want to uproot and transform the current health and wellness paradigm. Lauren Valdez is an interdisciplinary coach, entrepreneur, and public health advocate dedicated to fostering equitable communities and empowering individuals through education. She co-founded Forte Labs, an online platform that helps professionals enhance their productivity, and Grad App Academy, where she has supported over 500 students in gaining admission to elite graduate programs. In this episode, we dive into a deeply reflective conversation that explores the intersection of creativity, self-expression, and personal growth. Lauren shares her journey of integrating multiple identities, artist, entrepreneur, and public health advocate, and reveals how her approach to group coaching creates transformative experiences by allowing people to witness each other's growth and confront shared challenges. We discuss the importance of embracing contradiction within ourselves, using creativity as a form of healing, and how authentic self-expression can guide us through life struggles. Lauren also emphasizes the role of somatics, understanding our experiences through the body, as a powerful tool for grounding ourselves in truth and fostering deeper connection, highlighting how the body can be a guide in both personal and collective transformation. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today we have Lauren Valdez. Lauren, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited for us to get to have a deep conversation without kiddos running around.
Yeah. One of the ways of being embodied and present is not having children around, but at the same time is finding a way to being fully present while they are around. And that's, I think, for the higher leagues, right?
Yes. That's been something I'm actively practicing right now as a practice of keeping that presence, keeping that connection to myself when I'm with them.
Yeah, I actually noticed that with my one of my daughters that it's been very difficult for me to be fully present because she's demanding some sort of attention like every child, and I'm now in this frame of mind where I'm so busy with adult stuff that it's really contradicting. And I notice it, but whenever I'm in there, I say, not now. And I keep postponing that courageous moment where I'll try to do it and see what happens. So yeah, that's what I'm now.
Yeah, it's a struggle. I know that struggle.
Yeah, I know you just turned 37 a few days ago, and I loved the intention you put in one of the letters you wrote to yourself in a way of celebrating your birthday. Because I see myself in your words, and I'll read, quote, by the time I read this on my 38th birthday, my book will be in the world reaching thousands of students globally, and I will own my identity as a writer and as an artist, creating as fluidly as my emotions move. No more excuses, no more hiding. So I find myself in the same spot where I want to fully see myself as an artist and do all the things that I already do in the world as an artist. What does it mean to you at this point in your life to embody and own an identity of an artist?
That's a great question. I think for me, it's bringing my full self to everything I do. I often think of disjointed parts of myself, that there's an artist self, there's an intellectual self, there's a mother self, there's the daughter helping everyone, taking care of everyone's self. It's all these different things. And I feel like my artist soul has often been starved and has been suppressed, especially over the trajectory of my life. As a child, I was such an artist. I saw myself as an artist. I grew up in a very artistic family where we burst into song and harmonizing and guitars and music, at family parties. And I love being on stage. I love being a performer. I love being center of attention. I come from a giant family of performers. And as a kid, I went to performing arts school for acting, and I would go on auditions and that kind of thing. And then I got really into dance, and I did all this kind of dance stuff throughout my life. And then something happened where I started to get scared. I think it was like once I reached the level of performance and talent where I realized I'm not talented enough to do this professionally. It was like something happened where I could see the difference between me and people who were going places. And I saw that gap and it made me scared to like, when I sing, I know when I go off key. And to people who aren't singers, they're like, you sound great. Oh my God, I can't believe you sing like that. I'm like, no, you just don't know how to hear that I didn't hit all the notes right. So there's something that happened where I started hiding and like not performing, not doing those kinds of things as much. And then, I went to college and artistic stuff started being more like on the side rather than center. And then, you're like, I got to get a job, and you start doing things that are going to get you paid. And so that part of me, I think, got suppressed. And now I'm trying to like fully integrate and embody that part of myself. And I'm not really sure like what it looks like. Like I just bought a guitar for my birthday, as like trying to practice and embody my art on a daily, as a daily practice without having to get up and perform or monetize anything or share anything with anyone, just like for myself. Same thing with like painting, and writing has really been what I see as part of my art form. But I feel really scared when it comes to writing. I have multiple sides of writing. I have my Substack newsletter is like my writing for myself. For me, it's like my artistic expression. And then I have writing I do that's for work, which is like I've done a lot of like policy writing and a lot of writing for my jobs. And that is always like boring and dry. And for my newsletter, I have for my subscribers who follow my content on applying to grad school, that writing is very like tactile. Like, here are these ways to improve your grad school application. And that writing lacks my artistic expression. It's very dry. It's very like how to. And I'm writing this book now on applying to grad school. And I'm really trying to merge my artist identity with this book I'm writing on applying to grad school. And so I'm trying to like bring those together. And the thing about my artistic writing on my Substack is takes me like so long to write anything from that artistic way. And I think it's because I'm so scared of how it's going to come off. And so I've made a new goal this year for my birthday manifestation, that I'm going to publish my Substack every 2 weeks. And my other newsletter on applying to grad school will be on the off weeks. And I want each of those to really embody my artistic expression and kind of merge those two identities between those newsletters into one, and like really pull in the artistic side. And something I've been thinking a lot about is like the creative process and not letting fear or excuses stop me, and really taking responsibility for I'm a creative and I have to get things out regularly, or else they get stuck in me, like stuck traumatized emotions. And I have to just let them move and let them flow and stop being so worried about what it looks like. Just let the things that need to come out of me move. Very long-winded, Dan.
That's beautiful. I wonder if artists, so-called artists, they have a point in their life where they say, yes, I'm fully embodying the artist I want to be. Like, isn't it part of being an artist of believing you're not yet an artist, even if you are John Lennon?
I'm not sure, but I just recently found this creator whose works so speak to me. Her name's Vanessa Aldrich, and she talks about this concept of thriving artist versus struggling artist. And she really hones in on that topic about struggling artists, meaning like we have this viewpoint of like, oh, I'm a starving artist. And she kind of breaks that apart of like thriving versus struggling. Is like thriving is just you are responsible for your art and you're just like getting it out, and you have a process and you are able to go through your blocks and get through them. You know how to move through the struggle to get things out consistently, and you've taken responsibility for your art rather than the struggling artist she defines as the people who get stuck. They get stuck in the fear. They get stuck in the anxiety. They're waiting and relying on inspiration rather than having like habits that move them through the creation. And that's like the difference. And I think part of that fear is natural, but it's more like, can you use it as part of your art? I'm doing that more in like, if I'm struggling, using the struggle as part of describing my art form. And so right now, writing a book is so effing hard I'm like really in the struggle of it, but I'm using that struggle in how I channel it in helping my students who are applying to grad school. I've helped hundreds of people apply to grad school. So I have like, there's no blockages for me. I'm like, I've seen this a million times. Like people come to me and they have fears and they have stories and they're like, I can't and blah, blah, blah. And here's why this sucks. And I'm like, no. And I just like move them along their process because I've seen people go through it so many times that I'm not scared of the process. I know how to like I give them a workflow and I move them through it. And I'm like, oh, the blockages I'm feeling and the fear I'm feeling of writing this book is what they feel applying to grad school. So I'm using that fear and channeling it as I write to describe how they feel applying to grad school.
Yeah. So what I want to say about this is that, we productive people of the world that have projects who are selling products and services to the world are struggling to do it artistically, right? And if you are giving a how-to video, you want to bring your full-on creative self to that video, even if it's a boring and dry topic or a specific thing. And we believe, I think, that the productive side, the rules of the game preclude us or don't allow us to be artistic, right? So we separate, as you said. I have my creative side here, my newsletter, which is more about me, and my business newsletter there. The problem is that we resent it, right? We say, why is this way? It should be different. But we are not courageous enough to show the world that this can be done in the same thing, and we take responsibility for that shift. And that's exactly what the artist mindset brings to the table, is do it your own authentic way, but also, and this is my point here, the productive side of it. Like, you will be much better selling, conveying information, guiding students to applying to grad school when you add this authentic part of yourself. You'll have even more clients and more success rate than if you separate it. But we know that's true, but we still, at least for myself, I still believe that, it will take me a lot of time to figure it out instead of just jumping in, right? So I love how you put a 1 year goal to this merging of the two. And I'm sure that your artistic self and your productive self will both be enriched, And at some point, it will be a new way of delivering your product, that it would seem normal for you and for your clients, even though at the beginning, like now, it was so separate, so difficult to think. Did I explain what I wanted to say?
Yes.
So yeah, my challenge would be, how will a newsletter from this merged perspective in a year will be read? And how about if you try to write it right now?
Well, I am trying to write it right now. So I just like my Substack. I think I only did like 1 or 2 last year, and then it's every like 3 or 4 months, very random over the past year. And so I did my goal so far of 2 in a row, in biweekly. And then I was drafting another newsletter, and I was really trying to embody myself rather than the tactical, here's how to do something, bringing my full self into what I was just writing, which is, I've been exploring the idea of applying for a PhD. And so this is my first time writing about it for my newsletter on applying to grad school, about like where I'm at in that process, how I'm thinking about it, the fears. Like the first question is like, do I even go? I'm like on a whole exploration of that. And I think a lot of people don't take enough time to explore, should I do this before trying? And I'm trying to frame for people like this can be a very, very long journey. It doesn't have to be like you have the idea and you apply now. So I'm really trying to merge that through my writing now. And it already feels distinct from my normal style of writing in these newsletters. And I think it will sound like a different voice when people read this one I'm about to publish next week.
Yeah, great. And at the end of the day, I love, because as you say, it mimics the struggles that the students are going through. And in a sense, I know you help apply a lot of global students to US universities, a lot of them from India, right?
Yeah, from all over. I'd say the majority of the international students are from India, but a lot from Latin America as well.
Yeah. So, and this is another, So yeah, because a lot of these students are also unconsciously fulfilling or trying to fulfill their parents' dreams, right? Of going to America and getting a high degree education and then staying in America and, the American dream. But it's still the same struggle as an artist of, should you be an artist fulfilling your parents' dreams, right? Or should you be an artist and finding your own path? In a sense that these applying grad students are also artists who, by fulfilling their parents' dreams, might be also separating their lives, their artistic dreams and their parents' dreams, to say in a word. I'm just trying to merge how everything is the same, like your personal struggle, your student struggle, the artist struggle, and the productive person struggle, to bring together all the selves that we are in a creative way. Like, for example, in this podcast, I'm also thinking, you're not even posing the question correctly, and people will hit pause or just go to the next podcast because I'm already judging the way I'm posing this question to you, fulfilling others expectations in a sense. So what I want to get here is that how important is also to leave this application to grad school as an artistic process in and of itself, regardless of the outcome of the university that accepts and welcomes you.
Oh, that's such a beautiful framing. I haven't framed it that way as like the artistic self in applying to grad school, but I totally see how they're related. And I guess how I would define like what is being an artist, I think through every single art form, what you're trying to get to is your self-expression, like the fullest expression of yourself, as well as a truth. There's like a deep, deep truth that you're trying to get to in your artistic expression. Like I know this for actors, when they are acting and they're taking on a different identity in person, they have to find the truth in the words, in the emotion, to be able to express that emotion and those words authentically. There's like this authenticity that has to come out. And I think the best artist, like we're drawn to it because of the authenticity. And it is through that authenticity that we see ourselves, or we get something out of for ourselves. And this is a concept I really drive home to my students a lot, that applying to grad school or going to grad school, it's like their essays are an extension of who they are as a person. And I often say that I call it their grad school DNA. Like, I do group coaching. So we're reading lots of essays together and learning, like, look at what this person did well. Here's some blind spots you might see in your work. And it's really uncomfortable for people to work like this in a group. When they come to me, they're like, I don't want anyone to see my essays. They're like, can I work with you one-on-one? And I'm like, no, because that's a boundary I have. I'm like, I think the results are better when we work in community. And they're afraid of other people copying them. Or plagiarism or things like that. And I call it your DNA, your essay DNA, because every line should be so specific and so unique to who you are and your truth that not a single person could copy a single sentence and put it in their essay, or else it won't be relevant and fit with the context of their transcript and resume and all that. And so that's why I say it's like your DNA. It can't be copied. But it has to, the essays have to like be your truth. And if it's not your truth, it is so obvious to the admissions committee. When I read essays, when I've been on in admissions committees, it is like so obvious when someone is doing it because of society expectations or their parents or whatnot. Like, you don't feel the truth in the person. And so there is something about bringing that concept of the artist and looking for your truth in your self-expression. And I see that in helping people write, when the writing is really bad, when it doesn't sound like them, when they're pretending to be someone they're not, when they're pretending to be really smart and or like sound really smart, and it comes off as bad writing. And often when I'm coaching people, I ask them questions about things that are confusing to me or things that are missing in their essays, and their response is so beautiful. And I'm like, what you just said aloud, write that down. That is this paragraph. And so it really is about embodying that full self-expression and that truth, and looking for that in something as what that could seem so not artistic, like applying to grad school and writing those essays. Those essays essentially have to be a piece of art, a piece of self-expression.
So in medicine, in coaching, in nutrition, in health professionals in general, the group coaching is now being invited as part of the paradigm. Instead of the one-on-one consultation with your health professional, you are invited to share with a group, and like you're doing now. And second, the healing process of a diabetic patient, of an obese patient, of a cardiovascular patient has much more to do with patient observing his identity or her identity and working through the identity of disease towards the identity of health than of just picking the right foods and waking up at the right time and meditating and taking all the meds. What I'm seeing here is that even the healing process of a person of a chronic disease is the same of a struggling artist like you who wants to write a book and a potential grad student who's coming into grad school, which is basically taking a creative workshop to express who you are and who you want to be with all those emotions and selves that inhabit you simultaneously. And I find this so beautiful because what you're doing is not only coaching people, and you told me this in one conversation, you're not just coaching them to how to write an essay. You are giving them therapy. You are going to their family dynamics. You are really going into issues of self-care, of self-identity, or of self-growth. And I think that's beautiful because I work at the intersection of art, business, philosophy, and health, right? And the archetype of the artist, the creative person, let's say, is one of I would say, the way of just working with people, right? Just moving through those creative forces, and that will get you where you want to be in terms of health, status, grad school, whatever your purpose is. So what I want to say is that you are already doing it. And we're now just putting into words and trying to find more insights into this process, because I think what you're learning can be applied to so many other services of just helping people get towards their goals, whatever they are.
Yeah, I'm just sitting with what you said. Yeah, I think underneath, like, I do a lot of different things and have different, my business with Forte Labs and this grad school coaching and just like who I am in the world with my friends and family. And I think I have a deep desire for people to know themselves, trust themselves, and follow a path that is based on their wants and their desires, and not get stuck on like what Paul Miller calls like the conveyor belt of the default path. Where, people are like, I just got to go to law school and med school and work really hard. I mean, I've been on that path. And I've exited that path, which is really scary and hard, but I have so much more fulfillment. And I think there's a lot, people can have fulfillment on those paths of medicine and law and all that stuff too, when it's like truly aligned with their wants, their goals, and who they are as a human and what they want to create in the world and society. But I think there's a lot of people who never find that thing, and they're too scared to exit that kind of default path they've been on to like be in the discovery of something that's fully aligned for themselves. And applying to grad school, it's hard, and going to grad school is really hard, and it's expensive. Like, I don't think people know how expensive it is. Even when it's fully funded, it is still very expensive to not have like a corporate salary and live off a stipend that they give you. And many of the schools are in very expensive places to live. You should only do that if it is like the full alignment of your soul, and it's going to get you the shortcut to where you're going in life. And so I spend a lot of time with my students coaching them on like, is this right for you? Is this aligned? Where are you going? How does this get you there? Because a lot of people don't do that. They're like, and I'm not speaking for myself because I did this. There was a time when I was like, I should go to grad school because I'm not sure what else to do. And that's not a good use of your time and resources to do something like grad school when you're unsure of yourself. And so that, I think that the artist archetype really comes in with really like honing in on like who you are and following that pull into what's right for you.
I read on your newsletter that you moved from one-to-one coaching to group coaching. And I'm also a very big advocate of this because I also believe that in medicine, group coaching will be the future. What happens in a group where vulnerability, authenticity, or even just mirroring with other people allows us a better opportunity to be accepted as we are, so that we can jump into what we can be without being so self-conscious or self-critical? And two, how much of that just empathy gives you the energy to move into that path? And this is something that only the group can give you, right? Well, obviously the one-to-one, but the group is much more effective. What's your experience working with groups in that sense?
I have done a lot of group coaching. I'm just like for fun. Me and my husband like to sign up for programs to better understand ourselves and to learn. And I am so accountable to other people that I've always done things better in a group. I will show up better for a group than I will for myself. And that's just like, I know that about myself. So I like group stuff for the accountability of me showing up. But I also know from doing a lot of group coaching, and I'm talking about like so many types of group coaching, from like therapy modalities to dance classes, whatever it is. What I find happens in a group is like the people who are further ahead than me, I learn from, I see. If I'm in a dance class, and if there's not dancers better than me in that dance class, I don't like it. Like there has to be people who are better than me so that I'm like, oh, like I'm watching how they do things. I'm learning from them. I'm seeing what they do. And I'm like trying to model it. And that's in everything. And I think in a group coaching dynamic, we start to see blind spots we have, because you can so quickly see when someone else is being coached, things that they're doing well, and things that they're not doing well. And it's so obvious to the witnessers, like, oh, they got an issue in this area and like they're not confronting it. And then you're like, every criticism we have is a projection onto someone else. And we're like, and then you start to notice a blind spot for yourself. Like, oh, what are the ways in which I am doing that in my work? And you start to see it for yourself. And I think a lot of the biggest insights and breakthroughs happen obviously not when someone tells you this is your problem, this is what you should be doing, but when you discover it for yourself. And for me in group coaching, the discoveries I have when someone else is being coached, I'm like watching the dynamic and I'm just following along the story. And then all of a sudden, even if it seems like it has nothing to do with me, I'm like, oh my God, that's me. And then I see it and I see how it applies to me. And then I could have a big insight about how to change something. And I'll give you an example right now. Just to make this concrete, I was watching this interaction of someone being coached, and they were talking about, they were a South Asian woman, and they were talking about the pressure from their parents, in terms of school and like pushing them really hard to be good at all these things, and how they now hid from their parents, and they didn't do all the, they were like now very closed off from their parents, hiding from their parents in all these ways. And I was sitting there thinking like, I'm so glad I have parents who are very hands off. They never pushed me hard on anything, and they just let me follow my whims and all of that stuff. And I'm really grateful that allowed me to kind of have self-discovery. But I am the oldest of 5 kids. I'm a decade older than my 3 youngest siblings. And my parents were hands off because they never went to college. They, had kids young. They were not very invested in like what was going on for me with school. And they were just like, oh, Lauren's, she's off doing her thing. Like they didn't have to pressure me to do anything because I was a good student. But I had a lot of like pain around not having parents that helped me compared to friends whose parents helped like with all kinds of things. Like my parents couldn't really help me with school much after like elementary school. And because of that, I then did a lot to help my younger siblings in terms of like correcting their homework and tutoring them and pressuring them. And in this dynamic that I was watching, I was thinking about one of my siblings, and I was like, oh my gosh, do I do this to her? Do I pressure her? And I saw in that dynamic how much I like was that overbearing parent to her. And once I saw it, I called her and I apologized. And then she explained to me what had been going on her end. She was like, the other day I called you to ask about something and you just lectured me for like 30 minutes and I didn't even get to say what I wanted to say. And then I decided I just wasn't going to call you anymore for things like that. And I heard all of her pain and we were able to like repair it. And I was able to practice distance after that. And then, we could have conversations about when she wanted me to step in and when she wanted me to hang back. And it took a lot of practice for me to sit back and a lot of dialogue. And I got that out of like a group coaching moment where I was not even involved in that dynamic. And so I see that a lot in group coaching when we're able to learn from someone else, something that applies to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm also a recovering firstborn. And I think that a big step for us, hyper responsible eldest siblings, is to apologize at some point in our life, and also to recognize the gifts that we've given our siblings at the same time. It's not all bad stuff. But I know that you've been working as you studied public health, and you worked in public health projects at the intersection of city planning and entrepreneurship, and you see yourself also as a bridge builder between different kinds of people in different stages of their life, to talk about equity, creating healthy communities for low income people, youth personal development. And I see groups also in this arena, right? From a public health perspective, for me, groups is also what can change the way of interventions are happening. Instead of just having the eldest sibling come and give the answers, meaning the government or the social NGO, group that wants to heal whatever, but instead of just putting a space where minds, hearts, and bodies can sit together, and just through that conversation, through those mirrors, through those emotional links that we create, a lot of that healing happens, right? And a lot of that mutual understanding. And I see this obviously at the geopolitical global scale, like all the problems we have with racism and all the isms, how we forgot to sit around the circle and see how much we are alike, even when we are so different. So it's so beautiful how working also interculturally, like you are doing with coaching students, brings so much to the table in terms of that healing and creative process and creative self-expression to attain our goals. What's your experience in that sense from the public health perspective? And I know I'm jumping around a lot of topics, but that's what we do. At the end of the day, you and I are interdisciplinary thinkers. And that's why I want to show that as of in the small, in the big, as of inside, is it outside, also with public health agendas.
You just frame like a one sentence question, like about.
Yeah. So this idea of sitting people in the same group for the public health agendas, right? How useful would be for us just to create these spaces to bring diverse people in the same conversation?
Yeah, definitely. I am a big believer in bringing together different perspectives. And I think we have become so siloed with our media and how we consume. And we've become so siloed in so many ways that we are becoming disconnected from other humans. And I think even when you just completely disagree with someone on a topic, there is some truth in what the other person believes. Even if you're in total disagreement with it and you have like your facts prove that they're wrong, there is truth in what they believe. And we have to understand that truth to be able to come together in a broader sense for lots of different things going on in humanity. I am I read a lot of sci-fi, specifically a lot of Afrofuturism. And I think a lot about climate change and a post-apocalyptic world. If the data is true, about 50 years from now, by 2050, if we have massive shifts globally in where we can live because of climate disasters, we're going to have to come together for solutions very quickly, and we're going to have to relocate people very quickly. And I think the biggest battle in that is not going to be an engineering question. I think it's with climate change, it is the social questions, the questions of governance. How do we govern when we don't have borders that are so fixed and we have to quickly relocate people across borders? And right now there is so much massive xenophobia, across so many countries. The political climate is people don't want others to come in to their countries. We're seeing these political leaders rise quickly who have these agendas of trying to keep others out. And as much as I think I have a perspective and a belief that we should allow people in, I come from a family of immigrants from Mexico who came to the US, and I was able to have this incredible life of opportunities and privilege because my grandparents left extreme conditions of poverty in Mexico. And so I'm a big believer in we should be accepting of others. And at the same time, I know from like a city planning, infrastructure, governance perspective that that can take a toll on our infrastructure, on our systems when we aren't prepared for people to come in. And like, we see this with like informal housing in many big cities because people come into those cities when we don't have the infrastructure for it and that sort of thing. Like there's some truth to people's fear of immigrants. There's also some victim blaming that happens because it's easier to blame someone than to accept that things are not going well in a certain society. And I think that tension of that fear, like the way we move through it is really trying to see other people's humanity and really trying to align ourselves with a shared goal of saving ourselves as a species. Like as a species, we evolved faster than, these other species. And we went from being like middle of the food chain to top of the food chain because of our ability to collaborate. And through language. And this comes from, the book Sapiens, where he talks about this idea of language and our ability to believe in lies, meaning like we can believe in money, we can believe in policies, we could believe in laws that allowed us to go from tribes to countries, which animals, they can't really be tribal more than a certain number because you can't trust, more. I'm getting on tangents now, but essentially I'm such a big believer in that, like we need to move towards collective understanding and for our own humanity to survive as a species, to move forward as human beings, as our world shifts.
Yeah, I love the tangent because it's exactly where we want to get in this conversation of artistic healing and enriching goals and merging identities, because we are in a paradox, right? In the sense that what has allowed us to collaborate as humans and to believe in those lies and stories are now threatening our own survival. And it's funny because from one side, we want to maintain our identity, our heritage, be very proud of our customs, for where we're coming from, the skin color, whatever. And at the same time, we're moving towards this homogenization of society with everyone wearing jeans and having iPods, right? And both things are needed in a sense to collaborate and not to, so it's a paradox of how to feel that we are human, that we are loved, that we are enough, because of our differences, but also because of our similarities. And that's something that the cognitive mind doesn't really know how to do, be at the paradox. And I know, and this is where I want to bring the body and I think that's why group coaching and in-person meetings, we've discussed this earlier, are so important, because the body does know how to handle that paradox of I am an individual separate from you, but I'm also a collective self, equal and interdependent with you, and you are me. We are interbeings, right? And I think the body knows much better how to handle that than the mind explaining that we are different but we are the same, right? So the idea here is, for a public expert person like you, how the somatics, feeling ourselves as human with all these selves, can guide us to rely on this intuition to build these technical worlds that will avoid utter destruction.
Oh, I love that you're bringing us back to the body. So this is something I said earlier about trying to integrate these kind of disparate parts of myself. I think all of us have within ourselves so many contradictions, but those contradictions are so hard to like explain and express. So we put ourselves into a bucket and we're like, here's my bucket. I'm an entrepreneur. And then you're like, wait, but there's this other artistic side of me. But those contradictions are on so many levels of ourselves. I'm going to losing my train of thought when I come back to it. Like we each in ourselves are a contradiction. And then the media we consume is often so simplified. Like we see someone as all good or all bad. We see all the problem, and in that massive problem, we can't see like the gifts and the beauties of those problems. And in someone who we revere, like the Gandhis, of the world, we won't let ourselves see the bad things that they were or did or whatever. And no human ever is perfect. And I think about this, like, when someone dies, we put them on a pedestal and we're like, oh, here's why they were like, in our family. Right after someone dies, the whole family's like, oh, here's all the things that were beautiful. Like no one wants to say anything bad about someone who just died. It's like so complexity of people, and that hardest to do within ourselves. So we make parts of ourselves wrong, the parts of ourselves that we label as wrong, bad, needing to improve, needing to get rid of, that we need to hide. We create that contradiction in ourselves. And what I'm constantly trying to get myself to do is integrate. And this comes from internal family systems. I'm not that familiar with that modality. I've just heard of parts work, but I've been exposed to a lot of this, like kind of secondhand, like people who've studied that and bring it into some of the coaching I've done. But bringing in those identities and accepting them within ourselves is the first step in being able to accept it in others. And then at the level of, here are these rifts in society. And so I actually have this practice in terms of like bringing things into the body with myself, trying to integrate those things. And then I do these meditations where I do this gratitude practice where I have gratitude for things that I'm like, really grateful for, things that maybe I haven't been appreciating. I find the gratitude. And then at like the third level is things that I actively dislike or hate or that are triggering to me. I try to have gratitude for, and I sit and I feel it in my body until I could feel the gift of the thing that is my struggle. And that might be like, I had cancer. And I one day I sat and was doing this gratitude practice, and it just came up like this gratitude for cancer, to the point where I was crying at my gratitude of having had cancer. Because I am today one of like the healthiest people I know. My health and well-being practices are so solid and strong. And they really started with having cancer and really trying to heal my body and understand my body in a way that was like empowered, versus the mindset of like, when you have cancer, you feel so disempowered and, all these things are being done to you. And so like, I really believe that like trying to integrate these contradictions and paradoxes start in ourselves, in our body. And then when we can accept the parts of ourselves that are disconnected, then we could accept it in others and accept those things in other people or viewpoints or perspectives, or the paradoxes that are beyond ourselves.
Thank you. And, I love this conversation. This is one of the conversations that I need to listen before we put it out, because it's been so unpredictable of how much we are jumping and connecting different things. But, you sharing your cancer story, even if it's just for a 20-second thing, it's exactly what we're talking about here, which is everything happening all at once, right? And the artist, the somatic artist, is the one who is taking on the courage to legitimize that, right? As a way of being, as a mother, as a sibling, as an entrepreneur, as a spouse, as a teacher, as whatever. And I think that's the goal for us, that we are thinking also of the big crises of today, and especially global warming, where we are legitimizing a new identity to be in this world, right? A new way of being, of the felt experience of being human, with all the things that have created us up until this point. And that's why when you bring sci-fi and you bring African futurism to your work, it makes perfect sense, because at the end of the day, it's just not only visualizing, but feeling that way of being that we cannot copy from someone else. We will have to bring things from our ancient past and our ancient beings, our great grandparents who were so wise, and at the same time bringing all the things that are happening now in current day AI, hypercommunication, and whatever we're living. But also, how do we feel a potential human experience in the future? And I think that's why science fiction is so needed in this world. And I know it will take a while to be articulate, because we don't have the words to bring everything together. But if a person has followed us through this conversation, I hope they get this feeling of there is a coherence, even if we are trying to put together many topics at the same time, which is not the usual way of weaving podcast conversations where we want to transmit a message on what you do and what you offer to the public, right? What I want to say is give you courage and recognition that this is why I invited you to this podcast, because you are crazy enough to believe that all these things are Lauren and these things are needed for the world. For me as your friend is needed, and for me as your audience is needed. So just keep trying to do that, and I'll do the same.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know if you want to respond to that last comment so that we can close the conversation, and then we will listen it again. If we didn't make sense, we will record again.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting that we went in a lot of different directions, but I think we came back to this idea of like bringing everything together. And this is something, as I write my book right now, I am really seeing it as an extension of who I am as a person. And I'm really trying to bring all those different sides of me into what I write. And I so appreciate your acknowledgement of like all those different things are Lauren. And I really struggle to express what I do. Like whenever someone's like, what do you do? I'm like, I can't express it because there's just like that whole multitude of it. And I'm grateful that here I was able to bring forth like so many different parts of the things that interest me, that I think I'm trying to channel. And I guess what I would leave for the audience is this is a journal prompt that I've done, and I share it with my students. And the journal prompt is, what are the seemingly disparate parts of me, the parts of me that are in conflict, the parts of me that are a paradox, and to just like journal write on that. Like, you know, all of your, I heard this line the other day from, I read it in a book, and I can't think of the author's name right now because it was an essay in a bigger book where the author said, something about the divided histories in their body. And I love that, divided histories in their body. And I think about my own divided histories in my body in terms of like my family as well as, you know, my life experience. But I want to leave everyone with that question. What are the disparate parts of me, seemingly disparate parts of me? Then follow-up question, how are all those seemingly disconnected parts in me actually my gift? And just journal write on how those things, when they are put together through you, how are they your gift?
Beautiful. My wish to you for the next year is that you feel secure on the different identities that you will be embodying, but at the same time, you'll need an hour-long podcast to keep explaining what you do and who you are. And I think that's a good thing to do, not to allow for many opportunities and then come back to one single sentence description, because we are putting us in the same jail that we wanted to escape. But I do wish the embodied security that you are enough, while at the same time not I already said it, not being able to explain who you are in a single sentence.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
All right, Lauren, thank you so much. And I hope this is the first of many conversations. I admire your work and the approach you give to your work in the broad spectrum. Thank you for your generosity and for talking to me.
Yeah, this was so fun. And I'm walking away with like the peace and the like integrating your comments of like, yes, that all these things are me and in me and part of me, and like loving and accepting all those things.
Thank you. And I also feel the same craziness, that it's accepted and that it's legitimate and that it's needed and it is fun. So thank you also for allowing that craziness to be expressed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.